And we are live.
Yes, we are live.
Hello, hello, dear attendees of the Nordic edition of Angular World Tour. My name is Maxim Salnikov. I'm the organizer of Angular Oslo meetup and the Norwegian Angular community, and I have amazing team with me tonight. It's night. It's evening European time, but our guests are from other time zones. So, but first, I want to give a word to my colleague from neighbor country, Denmark, Sherry. She's driving Angular community there. Hello, Sherry.
Hey, everyone. I'm super excited to be here, and we are having a meetup after a quite long time. And thanks to the Angular Word. And yes, I am also here with Alexander, my co-organizer from Denmark as well.
Hello.
So today we are going to have an awesome agenda. Alexander is going to say a few words about that, but the main important things is that we have two amazing speakers that you can ask a lot of questions from them. We want to see you engage in our chat. So just ask any question and also talk to each other as well while we have this agenda. But however, we also want you to have the code of conduct in mind. I'm going to actually paste the link there. The code of conduct is pretty simple. Make sure that you all kind of that go through it and try to just be friendly and respectful of each other. So Alexander, what do we have on the agenda for today?
Yeah, I want to remind you all that we have a raffle tonight because GoTo has given us a free single day of a choice ticket to the upcoming GoTo conference in Copenhagen. And just a side note, it's not remotely, so you need to actually be able to attend physically. It will happen between the 8th and the 12th of November. So if you haven't signed up, don't hesitate. You can still make it. And there will be a lot of great stuff. And we will find the lucky winner later tonight. And also the link for the sign-up form will be available in the chat. Yeah.
So let's get it started by having Tracy saying a few words about the Angular tour and also her amazing talk about contribution to the open source.
Yeah, sure. Ashley's backstage messing around. Ashley, if you click on buttons, things change. We're getting used to StreamYard as a platform, which, by the way, we love StreamYard and excited to help co-host this. So Angular World Tour, this was, went to ngCo and the Angular team like oh my gosh, I don't even remember how long we started this, but a few months ago, and just decided, meetups are hurting, and we want to get people out, and we want to spread that Angular love that we haven't really been able to do like for so long. So Angular World Tour has been amazing. You can actually request us to come to your city, angularworldtour.com. And, somebody from the Angular core team like ngCo or Mark or Emma are typically the people that give you updates on Angular and what's happening right now. And then we have speakers from the community too. So it's been a really fun thing. And it's been really great to, do this. And thanks Angular team for supporting meetups and just seeing faces again, right? We were talking about, we haven't seen each other for many years now. It's crazy. But yeah, really excited to be here. So angularworldtour.com again, and we would love to come to your city. Do you want me to give my talk now?
Maybe let's give a couple of words to ngCo to introduce himself and what he will present about after your session, Tracy. Yeah, welcome, ngCo.
Sure, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Maxim. Glad to see you. Sorry, I can't see you in person this time. So yeah, my name is ngCo. I'm working on the Angular team at Google, where I'm leading developer relations. And yes, Tracy has been putting these Angular World Tour events together and we have been really all around the world, right? How many events are by now, Tracy?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, but we went to Athens.
Dozens.
We did, yeah. I mean, I think it's like twice a month we go to different cities and things like that. The one I remember most recently is Angular Athens that we went to a few weeks ago. Oh, and then we went to GDG Memphis
too.
as well. Japan, I think, is coming up. Japan is not yet. Yeah.
Oh, was that a spoiler on my side?
Yes. Dang it, Minko. No, but yeah, no, I mean, you can join, you can come chat. I mean, we did Angular Athens. It was Angular in Memphis. So, and then we did Angular Seattle too. So again, just kind of like hanging out at all the different local cities and getting to see people come out and get people excited about, hopefully.
That's a really global tour, and we are super happy to have you in our Northern European corner in the Nordics. Quick update about today's agenda. Unfortunately, our third speaker, Sander, is sick today, so he will not join us. That means that we have more time for Q&A. And folks, please, let's organize discussion. Please use chat window of YouTube live streaming to send your questions to Tracy and Minko, and just to say hi. And please post where are you watching us from, which country, which city. That's really interesting to know the geography of today's event. I think we are absolutely ready to go now. Sherry, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if Sanders, you happen to see us, we really hope you get well soon and hope to see you again back to our agenda. So, yeah.
Yes, totally. Then, Tracy, I believe the stage is yours. Please rock on.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, actually, if you can take everybody but me off the screen, that would be amazing. And then we can add everybody back on later. Let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. All right, there we go. Okay, so welcome everybody again. Thank you so much for attending. Love to see those comments on YouTube. I see folks commenting and saying hi. Mahmoud, we have not gotten a request for Toronto yet, but you can definitely, go to Angular World Tour and have request it. And, especially if you organize Angular World Toronto meetup. Same thing with anybody else that's kind of like posting where they're located and everything like that. All right, so today we're going to talk about contributing to open source. So this is a question that I get a lot. It's how do I contribute to open source and how do I become Minko? That's really the thing today. No, I'm just kidding. But it really is like how to become a successful open source contributor. The great thing about that is it's actually really easy and there's so many ways to do so. This is going to be just like a really quick start guide on how to do so. So my name's Tracy. You can always find me on Twitter at LadyLeet. I love talking to people. I love the Angular community. And I'm also the CEO of a company called This.Labs. I'm on the RxJS core team, Google developer expert, Microsoft MVP, and I just love community stuff. So I just got off a monthly Woman in Tech mentoring just now. So you can actually go to this and find Woman in Tech mentoring that we do every month. So definitely tell all your female developer friends, and we love seeing them and we love having really amazing conversations. I get to work with amazing people and amazing clients. So we are 100% remote and worldwide as well. So yeah, if you want to come work on some really cool projects, definitely hit us up. And, this is how I make friends anyways. So you can always email me, Tracy at this. And I would love to talk to you and hang out. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, how do I contribute to open source? I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey. I'm going to talk about the how and the why of why you might want to be doing so. And then also do's and don'ts, right? Sherry did a really great job at explaining like code of conduct related things. And, definitely within the communities, there are code of conducts, just like Angular's code of conduct. So starting off with my journey, and again, my hope in sharing this with you is to show you how easy it is. And, it was so funny because we were just on the monthly Woman in Tech Mentoring talking about building your online profile. And, sometimes when you just don't care, I think when you go online and when you start joining a community and you see all these people who, you might look up to or who have done really cool things, you might think, oh my gosh, I'm just this person. Who am I? But it's kind of amazing if you just kind of, forget about all that and just do you, how successful you can actually be. So for me, I just joined a boot camp. And then I said, okay, look at these JavaScript people. Let me join the JavaScript community, right? And then, now I'm on the ArcGIS core team, a GDE, and an MVP. But all I did was, find Twitter and start talking to people. I was excited about Angular. I started talking about Angular online, speaking at Angular conferences, looking at who was speaking at Angular conferences, figuring out which conferences to go to, right? Who was doing cool things, who was working on cool things, and then just talking to them generally. I also spent a lot of time just sharing my experience. I was really into Angular material and Angular CLI when it was first coming out. So I just started talking about my journey and what I was excited about and writing about it, writing blog posts about Angular material when it was still in alpha, because, oh my gosh, the amount of configuration and setup you had to do to actually use Angular material was not small. So I started doing that. And then people started realizing that like I was interested in these topics as well. So again, I was able to kind of give back in my own way and help, even as a beginner, right? I was just a beginner at the time. And then the other thing I did was just meet people, right? So, I met tons of people online and at conferences and at meetups. So, seeing people here, for example, I see Jacob and Jorn and Palami and Fanis, which I think I've seen before at some Angular World Tours, right? And, getting to know people and for you guys to all say hi in chats is just like the first way to just get started, right? If you're just like nice and friendly and helpful and whatever, then, the rest will kind of come. So, the last thing again was contributing. So I was still contributing from a like non-technical standpoint, I would say, where I was blogging and, trying to help people on the internet. But I would say probably one of the more, significant things I've done is probably just help get the ArcsJS documentation started and going, right? So, the ArcsJS core team, we were already friends and they just needed some help. And it wasn't that difficult. I mean, I was speaking at Angular conferences. I was talking about ArcsJS anyways. I just started saying, hey, we're forming a documentation team. Email me. And enough people emailed me to where we started like forming a group of people. And through that, within a few months, we were able to, launch a new documentation site. And that was really amazing, right? But, I think that goes to show, like, if you just keep your eyes open, you get to know people, you'll find ways that you can be helpful. Shortly thereafter, they asked me to be a part of the core team, which was great. And I was totally happy to do so. But, of course, if you start contributing and helping, don't expect to become part of a core team, but it could be a really good way in. But even if you don't, right, like the contributions you make to the community are will start to be noticed, and you will start to be able to have people appreciate what you do. So hopefully that helped you a little again on how easy it could be to get started. I was giving a talk yesterday and somebody messaged me afterwards. They just emailed me. They said, hey, you told me to email. How are you? And I was like, hey, how's it going? So, we're starting a conversation and, who knows where that's going to lead, right? Or this other person, he apparently has like 4 PRs open for the ArcsJS repo, which is mostly like fixes to the documentation. And, he saw my talk and he slid into my DMs on Twitter and said, hey, by the way, I made these, like, can you help me get them merged? So I'm helping him with that. So, again, part of it is just like hanging out on the internet and not being shy about talking to people and doing good. So let's talk about you, right? Like, there's 2 reasons why you probably want to get into open source. There might be more, and I'd love to hear in the comments if there's other reasons why you're trying to get into open source. But 2 of the main ones are being functional and aspirational. So functional would mean, hey, I need to fix something that's not working for me, right? Maybe you're using Angular at work and you need to fix something because it's not working for some reason, or you're waiting for a feature to be released, right? Who knows? That might be a functional thing. Aspirational would be something like, hey, wow, the world is my oyster. I realize how big it is. And I really want to get a new job and, be an open source contributor. And, that's what I would call being very aspirational, right? You have aspirational goals in open source. Both paths are totally awesome, but how to approach them is just a little bit different. So when you talk about functional, right? I mean, you're probably looking at something from a tech perspective, like maybe you're using Angular and, you really need something to be changed for some reason, or you really need like a bug to be fixed, right? Or maybe at some point in time, you think you will need that, maybe like in the next year or so, right? If nobody knows you and you're just submitting changes, let's say to the Angular repo, like nobody's going to, it's just like, well, who's this random person? I don't know who you are. And, they'll look at it. I mean, Angular community and the Angular team is really open about that. But if you are already a contributor, you've already given back, you've already helped with something, then getting what you need later on is going to be so much easier. So definitely try to figure out ways, if you're intending to need help later, to start giving back now before you have to ask for something. Contributing things upstream as you see things need to be fixed is really helpful and really, really useful. Now, of course, before you do that, the second thing is definitely submit an issue first and ask for feedback. There's so much that is happening in open source that goes on behind closed doors. You might really want a feature, but maybe it's coming. Maybe there's a change, but maybe it's in the next release. Who knows, right? Or maybe like core team has talked about something and decided against making a change for some reason. You, again, just don't know what work has already been planned or privately being worked on. So you don't want to waste your time, whether it be months or an hour or whatever, to do something, right? So make sure to do that. And then, if you're not getting a response on that issue, then, you can simply just, find a maintainer on Twitter or something like that, right? Which kind of goes to my third thing, finding maintainers in other forums. Now, this is not to be annoying. This is, because you're trying to be awesome and build relationships with people. But, GitHub is a very noisy place. It's very noisy. So building relationships in other forums, again, like on Twitter or sending an email if you need a response, is really helpful. Probably the tone should not be, hey, I'm demanding this. Why haven't you looked at my stuff? But if you send a nice personal message and, you're a nice person, you're probably going to get a response potentially quicker than GitHub. Again, it varies on different projects, right? And who has time at that point. But make sure you're not being impatient or feel entitled to a response. Things are always busy and people are always busy. So you might not be somebody's top priority. And, that's completely fine as well. Just remember that. But if they know you, then, you might have a better chance, right? Like, ngCo, I trust that if I ever make a contribution to Angular in the next few weeks, you are going to make my PR the top priority. But, ngCo might, at least I've established a relationship with ngCo and, he'll at least give me the time of day, right? Versus, maybe he doesn't know somebody and he's just too busy to respond to them. This is the nature of humans, right? So the last thing is, again, just building genuine relationships, right? And I said that before, but nobody likes to be used. Nobody likes to feel like you're just trying to get ahead and you just need something, so you're just using them, right? I mean, it's like that in any relationships, dating relationships, any personal relationship, work relationships, maybe, right? So make sure to remember that like the foundation of open source and, basically building free software is this idea that there's genuine people and genuine relationships happening. And it really is about doing good for the community, right? So if you're aspirational, I love this because you can literally do whatever you want to do, right? When you do this, I think the first thing you can do, so this is great because you're not limited to anything, right? Like you might not, let's say you're working on Angular at work, you're not limited to just trying to build a career, contributing to the Angular repo, let's say. Maybe you're really passionate about something else, right? Maybe it's something React, maybe it's something Vue, maybe it's NGRX for some reason. Like whatever it is, you can choose. So I think the first thing to ask yourself when you're trying to find your place in open source is, can I be a successful contributor? Do I like this team? And great ways to look at that are looking at the RFCs, looking at the PRs, looking at the responses and the issues. Do I like this team? Can I see myself working with them? Who knows, right? But there's so many different cultures out there and so many different people out there. You will definitely find teams that will be the right fit for you, right? The other thing, and I kind of mentioned this in the functional aspect of things as well, is make sure you're solving problems that maintainers want, right? What you think is relevant in a project might not be what the maintainers think is relevant. So make sure you're working on those problems first. There's tons of issues typically that are typically marked as good first issue or looking for help. For those of you who don't know, Hacktoberfest is actually happening right now for the next 11 days. So you can go to hacktoberfest.com and there's plenty of repos that are designated good repos for Hacktoberfest if you want to just kind of get your feet wet and start contributing, right? But again, solve problems that maintainers want. And again, this is the best way to do so is just to, look at the issues or submit an issue and, double check, kind of like ask, hey, is anybody working on this or can I work on this? And then once you hear back, go ahead and start contributing. So another thing is just helping with the documentation as well. So, typically you're going to want to contribute to an open source project that like you're probably passionate about and using, right? If you're using an open source project, you're probably using the documentation. And if you're using the documentation, there's issues and holes in the documentation because documentation is never perfect, right? Like for example, this guy that just contributed to the RxJS documentation, he's updating a lot of stuff to RxJS 7. And, that stuff is really helpful. We didn't have time to do it. He's submitting a PR. We're very happy about it, right? And honestly, I hope this guy sticks around a little bit because we need more people kind of helping with the documentation. Maybe he's like the new person, maybe he's like a new contributor that's going to be consistent to RxJS. I would be very happy if that was the case. So you'd be surprised by what you can do by just helping with the documentation. You ask any maintainer and they will say, yes, we can use help with the docs, right? So, again, whether that's live examples, better wording, better explanations, like all these things are very helpful. And the last thing, especially when you're aspirational, is just making sure you're sharing your journey. If you're passionate about something, write blog posts, talk about what you love doing, talk about certain features, talk about if you ran into an issue and how you solved it, right? Right now, Node is really focused on, Node 10, right? So there's like a lot of movement in the Node community around that. But you can literally look at their roadmap and just say, hey, I'm going to write a blog post about Next 10 and what's happening in Node. Same thing with RxJS, right? We're on the path to RxJS 8. There's an issue that documents everything that's happened in RxJS 7 all the different releases, all the new features, and then what is planned to get to RxJS 8. Somebody needs to write a blog post about that, right? And that type of stuff, again, is so helpful. And, you know, it doesn't matter if there's a blog post written about it. It wasn't written by you, which is why we need it in the community. So make sure you're continuously educating and sharing as you go along your journey. So hopefully that makes you guys feel comfortable in contributing. And, you know, again, to see how easy it could be to get started in open source. But I also want to, is it Node 718? Thank you, Lars. So the do's and the don'ts as well, right? So there's a lot of do's and don'ts within the community. And, you know, a lot of this, I think, sometimes is common sense, or maybe I've just been in open source too long. I don't know. But I think the first thing is just making sure you have compassion. Like, maintainers are working for free on nights and weekends. It's hard. Have compassion for them. Treat them like they're people, right? You're not just talking to a robot when you like go and yell at somebody, you know, about an issue and like, why is this broken? Those are people too, right? And people can only handle so many things at one time. So if you're going to treat somebody badly, they're going to remember, you know, and then they're not going to want to work with you, you know? Make sure to be professional. You're definitely not getting paid to talk to these people, you know, on the internet. And it's not a job that you have to show up for that you get paid for, but everybody expects you to be professional and have some sort of professional etiquette, right? So make sure you're treating those relationships with professionalism and respecting each other. Also assuming the best of intentions, you know, like you might have questions on, you know, the internet right now is really, Twitter seems really like to have a lot of conversations right now or on TypeScript or no TypeScript lately. Don't know why, but that's the angry mob of Twitter right now and what they've chosen to talk about this week. But, you know, again, assume the best of intentions, right? Like if you're going into a project and you're saying, oh my gosh, why isn't this done in TypeScript? This sucks. Like nobody's going to listen to you, right? And nobody's going to give you the time of day, right? Or, hey, why the heck is this working this way? This is so crappy, right? Like you just don't know why, and you weren't there to make those technical decisions. And there were probably good reasons why those technical decisions were made, or maybe not, who knows, right? But like, that's life. You know, being an open source and being a maintainer is often really tireless and thankless. So make sure you remember that. Also code of conduct, right? Make sure you're treating people with respect. Make sure you're abiding by that code of conduct. And, you know, generally just be nice to each other. Now to the don'ts, like make sure not to be entitled or act entitled. Be nice and patient. Don't think you're a maintainer's biggest priority, right? Like, you know, Ben, for example, you know, main maintainer of RxJS, Ben Lesh, he has a full-time job, and then he has a full-time job basically adding features into RxJS, and then he has 3 kids, and then he has a life. I mean, that's a lot of things to deal with, right? So if he doesn't get back to you, it doesn't mean he's ignoring you. It just means that he's busy. So let me tell you, even as Ben and, you know, one of his best friends, sometimes to get Ben's attention, I have to email him, I have to text message him, I have to tweet at him, and then I have to call him. And I will do that all within a 5-minute period. I'm not saying you should do that to Ben, but I'm saying even for people that are close to you, like sometimes that's what I have to do, right? So again, don't think that you're the person's biggest priority. But you should follow up. You should follow up with people because people are not ignoring you intentionally, hopefully. They're just busy, right? But make sure to follow up with reason. And this is like the don't be annoying part. I mean, if you email somebody 10 times a day, they're not going to be the happiest person. And they will probably ignore you because you're being really annoying. But you should follow up with people because, you know, even once a week or something, hey, can I get help? Hey, reach out to somebody else, right? Like, again, going back to the RxJS repo, this guy who submitted some docs changes, you know, I saw he was talking to like, he asked Ben a question in the PR that he submitted. He was talking to Jan Nicholas, who does a lot of the documentation PRs. But, you know, he hadn't received a response in like 7 days or so. And then he reached out to me. That's totally fine. I'll reach out to them and we'll figure it out, right? But he's not being annoying, which is nice. And which is why I will help him. Also, don't complain, right? Like everybody will also always say, hey, don't complain about something you're getting for free. If you don't like it, go fork it, or like go use a different library. And that is very true, right? Like everybody's trying their best. So you really do have to assume that. And, again, you're probably, because you're not close to all the technical decisions that are made, this is probably why, you don't understand why a technical decision was made, but there was probably a good reason, So make sure not to complain and make sure to just be thankful that we have so much software available to us for free. So I hope this was useful to you all. I'm always happy to chat. You can always, again, find me on Twitter at Lady Lead. I hope you found, my journey easy and useful. And I hope you guys have kind of helped identify and learn how you can potentially get involved in open source as well. And I really hope this inspires you all to start making more contributions to the community, documentation, blog posts. I'm going to tell you, Angular community, whenever we get together and talk for Angular Contributor Days or, other things, it's always like, man, people should write more blog posts about Angular. So let me tell you, if you start writing blog posts about Angular, even as a beginner, even as a mid person, whatever it is, all content is valuable and really, really, really appreciated within the community. And it's a great way to start getting to know people in the community as well. So yeah. And also, of course, again, this is how I make friends, and we are hiring Angular developers, love Angular as a technology. So email me, and I hope to chat with you all soon.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Very inspiring session. I hope that folks will go and contribute to open source projects, or maybe will open source their own projects or will kickstart new projects. So please keep us posted, folks, how that works for you. Maybe please feel free to share projects you are looking contributors for in our chat window. Maybe you'll find new contributors to your project right tonight.
Yeah, since especially it's Oktoberfest time. So it's a time to contribute. And Tracy, I really love that slide, that do's and don'ts. It was really great. Well said.
Thank you.
So this is a time that actually that you can type all of the questions that you have in the chat. And Tracy is here. She's going to answer all of your questions. Do we have any questions already, Maxime? So people are asking about if Angular tour is going to Canada or going to India. So
yeah, I think for all of those things, again, you can just go to angularworldtour.com and email, and then, we can set it all up. So yeah.
There's a question here, but I can see that Lars from Denmark. Hi, Lars. So he's mentioning that I feel too stupid to think if I contribute. So this is one of those common things that a lot of people mentioning. And you briefly actually say something about it in your talk, Tracy, but do you want to add a few things to it?
So I think when I got started in open source, I was a beginner. I had been probably doing, JavaScript for like 3 weeks and maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it was a few months that I had been doing JavaScript until I discovered Angular and decided to learn it, right? But I was like so excited about so many things. I already loved material design. I was already in Ember. I loved the CLI. I was like, oh my gosh, Angular has the CLI. Angular has material design. this is so cool, right? I didn't actually know what I was doing, but I was not scared to just share everything, you know? And I think, again, that's the beauty of it, like almost being, I don't know if it's a naive or whatever you want to call it, but just not caring, right? Not thinking about, am I going to sound stupid? People don't care. People already know. They probably know more than me because I don't have a lot of experience. I just shared what I was excited about. And I did that at conferences. You know, I spoke about what I was passionate about. And I think that that is something that, you know, we forget, you know, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're excited about, whatever level you're at, is very valuable to people. I mean, I still remember, you know, talking about the CLIs and how exciting there were, right? Like I was just really into it, like Create React App, Angular CLI, Ember CLI. And, you know, some developers who had more experience, they would go to my talks and they'd say, man, it's so great to see this from a beginner's perspective, right? I was like, yeah, sure, great, you know? So I think that's part of it as well, like just, you know, and again, like sharing information or helping. You know, I was talking about, you know, if you look at Node, for example, they have this really intense GitHub, which has so much information. I swear you can get lost so deeply in there. But the reason why I know something's missing that I'm looking for is because I'm too close to the project, right? And the people who are maintaining the project know exactly where to find the information they're looking for. As a beginner, you undervalue the use of telling people why their repo that makes sense in their head doesn't make sense to anybody else. So I think that's really valuable as well, right? Like those fresh set of eyes to go into things and say, you know, Angular Tree of Heroes is great, but here's why I think maybe it should be fixed. Submitting an issue that way, right? I think everybody is very willing to want to improve and learn upon those things. And they're just waiting for somebody to bring it up. So don't be afraid to bring it up as well.
That is very true. And I remember a recent conversation I had with some of our colleagues that they are content developers. They were talking about the lack of exactly the getting started content for all the topics, because there are very few of them. And then after that is advanced. So there is still a very big kind of that gap for fixing all of this getting started documentation, and that's the best you can contribute to the docs actually, even in all of this, or you can start by writing your articles, getting the feedback, and then make that ready to be part of the doc.
So my very first contribution to AngularJS, I just shared it in the chat. I just added missing brace, I think. So it's a single line contribution. And yes, anyone can help improve the project in the way they're feeling the most comfortable with. That was back in 2013, and I remember how nervous I was. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got on full screen. Maybe you should make me small. Yeah, smaller.
You know, actually, another thing though is, you know, this was funny because so many years ago, it was like in the RxJS repo, you know, it was like, okay, within the brackets, do we do spaces or do we not do spaces, right? And it was inconsistent. So I was like, you know what? This is something I can help fix, right? And that was one of my first contributions to RxJS, just making spaces in between the brackets.
And you're learning a lot from that too, right? You learn how to open a pull request. You go through a code review process. You understand how the developer infrastructure in the repository works, how the build process works. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing your stories, Tracy and Minko. Yeah, really inspiring, right? From fixing curly brace to Angular core team member. Well, folks, that means all skills are welcome in contributions to open source, and don't let imposter syndrome to block you from contributions. This is how we can sum everything up. Okay, I think we are ready to hear from Minko about the status of Angular. And thank you very much, Tracy. It was amazing session, and it inspired lots of people. Minko, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Just shared my slides. So thank you very much for coming here today. As I mentioned, I'm working at the Angular team at Google, where I'm leading developer relations. And this presentation today, I would want to share with you what we have been up to recently. I want to share a couple of large efforts that we have been working on, and what you should be expecting from Angular in the near future. Before that, I want to set the stage a little bit, because Angular has its unique trade-offs, benefits. Some of them are just bringing extra value to developers. Others are setting some constraints, and we believe that these constraints are worth it for what you're getting out of it. So Angular is an integrated platform for the web, right? We have different modules, and they all integrate well together. For example, components, CLI, and we have framework. We're primarily targeting the web platform, even though you can build mobile apps with Angular too. But our main focus is web. Also, Angular is built for everyone. This is one of the main mottos at Google as well. We want to build for everyone, so we're paying an extra attention on accessibility and making applications accessible in different ways. That is why we spent the last quarter, or the last year actually, in making just accessibility fixes in the Angular material components, on top of other things as well. We're also betting on performance because we want to make sure that Angular applications are accessible on different devices. Angular is also opinionated and scalable. You can't start an Angular application in JavaScript, and the chances are that you would never be able to do that. We want everyone to be using TypeScript, and we consider it as a best practice. And this is not going to change. Here is one trade-off, one constraint that Angular is setting in order to make your experience scalable. And it is also opinionated. We have our directory structure that we're recommending as part of the style guide embedded into our tooling. And this is just one example. There are also naming conventions and much more that you can find in the style guide that is directly baked into the tooling. Also, Angular is mature, stable, and supported. We're probably not going to come up with a brand new backward incompatible API. The chances are that we're not going to do that because we want to incrementally move Angular forward by adding new features and incrementally evolving the framework, deprecating stuff, adding automated migrations. It's not going to be trendy announcements on social media that we're going to rewrite the framework and make everything way different. We're just going to push incremental changes, and we'll be communicating them in RFCs whenever they have significant impact on the public API service. It is also supported. There are literally thousands of projects at Google that we are familiar with and we're looking at on a daily basis that are using Angular. And as part of our commitment on building Angular, and Google being our supporter, I guess, in this phase, is for us to support these projects. So if we break something, we need to fix it. In fact, by the fact that we're working as part of a organization as Google, we're getting a lot out of it. We're getting a lot of opportunities for collaboration with other teams. We're getting a lot of validation. These thousands of projects that need to be working with every single change that we make into the framework, while we are getting validated that the changes that we're making are actually backward compatible and don't introduce performance regressions. Google is allowing us to support Angular. So we're supporting Angular not only for internal projects, but also for external projects. So if your application breaks, you can open an issue, and we're going to look into it. We're going to make sure that we are supporting you on your way, moving from one Angular version to another. And clearly, out of the partnership within Google, we have a lot of expertise. Google is one of the main players in the development of the web platform, building a web browser such as Chrome. So there is a lot of expertise within the company that allows us to get on top of what is happening in web and make Angular modern, aligned with web standards. Let me share an example of collaboration. So we are working with the Firebase team on Angular Fire so that we can provide smooth integration with Firestore and also Firebase hosting. Another example is our collaboration with Project Aurora. That is a Chrome sub-team that is responsible for making sure that web frameworks are aligned with Core Web Vitals, so they perform well in terms of these user-centric metrics. We have been working with Project Aurora on a couple of different efforts, such as inlining of critical resources, for instance, and adding conformance checks so that we can make sure that your performance doesn't regress over time. Another example is our collaboration with TensorFlow.js. I think this is a really good example given how invested Google is into machine learning. So for Google I/O 2021, we developed this advanced predictive prefetching pipeline with TensorFlow.js, where you're literally running a deep neural network in a service worker so that you can predict what are going to be the actions of your users so that you can prefetch a content that they would most likely need. If you're interested in the topic, I would recommend you checking out this blog post, which is a more in-depth write-up by the Angular and the TensorFlow teams explaining how this works. And also, if you're interested in a very quick overview, you can check out this talk by David and me with the same background as right now, where we're discussing a lightweight integration on how you can make Angular and TensorFlow.js work together, following best practices just by running the model in a separate thread in a worker and lazy loading everything just at the time when you actually need it. In terms of validation, I want to share a story that happened actually quite recently. You all know about Ivy. Ivy has been the thing that we have been talking about over the past 3-4 years now. Brad Green, back then our engineering manager, he was promising us cakes if we reach a certain size threshold. And when I was not yet part of the team, when I was building my own startup, I was participating in this meetup in Mountain View, where Rob shared a demo of Ivy, how the Hello World application was under 4 kilobytes, about 3.3K gzipped. I was pretty excited back then. I remember I couldn't wait for the Angular team to release Ivy and to make all this magic available. Clearly, nobody's really building Hello World apps. So this 3 kilobytes is not really a feasible metric, but it was showing still some tree shakeability and reduced code generation that Ivy actually achieved. We released Ivy officially in 2020. So this is 3 years later. Actually, almost exactly 3 years later, after I took these photos in Mountain View. And the community has been using it for almost 2 years now, at least 1.5 years. We noticed some benefits where the size of the code generation decreased with about 30%, especially visible for applications at scale. But we didn't really understand the whole implication that Ivy had until we completely rolled it out at Google. Because Google is something like a small model of the whole web ecosystem. It is a smaller model because we have only billions of lines of code, right? And externally, there are many companies with large scale that are building millions of applications. But also at the same time, we have a lot of visibility into what's happening in Google because we have a monorepo and we have a centralized CI. So once we completely flipped the switch and we started compiling everything with the Ivy compiler rather than with the Vue Engine compiler, we noticed 90% reduction on computational resources. So the Ivy compiler was 90% more efficient, meaning that it is faster, it consumes less energy, and also it reduced the build time for the largest Angular app at Google with 50 minutes. And that's a lot of time. Generally, we are aiming at improving the build speed at Google significantly because this project I'm talking about, it has over 9 million lines of code. So we have a lot of different levels of build caching. We have our monorepo where we are using remote build execution with Bazel. So everything is pretty much like very well optimized. But improving the build time with 50 minutes, that was something that we did not expect to happen at all. And Ivy not only brought some improvements of build time clearly and reduction of bundle size, but it also unblocked us from building some tooling that we have wanted to build for years. For example, helped us improve our debuggability and profiling experience with Angular. We released Angular DevTools on Google I/O, so now everyone can profile their applications and see how many change detection cycles their app is triggering, how long are they taking, and what exactly triggers the change detection, which components are the heaviest, and so on and so forth. We also released guides for debugging Angular applications. So the top error messages now have associated guides with them. So when you click on the guide, you're going to get redirected to a page which explains what exactly this error that you got is all about. And you're also going to be able to watch a video that explains everything in a more entertaining way. We collaborated with Fireship here, and Jeff from Fireship has been creating some fantastic content. So I'd recommend you checking this out. For the first 6 months, we got over 450,000 views of these guides. So definitely give them a go if you haven't just yet. They're part of Angular version 11 and above. To improve the visibility of larger projects that we have been up to recently, we worked on releasing our roadmap. And this was way harder compared to what we originally anticipated. As you have seen in social media probably and on GitHub, the web ecosystem is evolving really fast. There are new standards coming out on a weekly basis. We need to keep up with some of them. We also need to keep up with integrations with alternative technologies, and we want to make sure that we're innovating. So all of this in an organized way where we can talk about the efforts for the next couple of years was pretty tricky. We ended up having this organized list that we can share also publicly comfortably. And as of today, it has over 300,000 views. So we can see that this is an important part for our communication with what we have been up to. And if you're interested in the top project that we're looking at, feel free to go to angular.io/guide/roadmap. While working on large projects, long-term projects such as Ivy, sometimes we prioritize some work more than others. And this was clear with the growth of some of the issues and pull requests in the Angular Mon repo. So once we completed the major work on Ivy, we spent quite some time triaging issues. We had different initiatives varying from the so-called fix it, which is a process where our team takes a week to just look at GitHub issues. We also had our operation bylog, where we're spending the whole team up to 50% of our time in triaging issues. And we also introduced a new feature request process, which includes the community by allowing you to vote on individual issues and letting us prioritize feature requests depending on how many votes that they have received in case they align with the Angular's roadmap. We reduced the number of issues significantly since then. From close to 3,000, now they're about 1,700. And we will continue doing so, but also at the same time, we are mindful about not closing anything that you would consider important. We want to keep the signal and make sure that we're reviewing the work that is most highly voted and appreciated by the community. Another part of our communication was around Twitter and YouTube. We hit our 100,000 subscribers on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and last week we had 400,000 followers on Twitter. So if you're interested on updates or entertaining content by Mark, Emma, and sometimes I, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and also make sure you follow us on Twitter. We're pretty active on Twitter. Every week we have about 30-minute slots so that we can schedule new content and make sure that we share the newest things that are happening within the team. So the last thing I want to chat about before we move to the technical work that is happening on the team is our request for comment process. To better communicate larger efforts and make sure that we're getting valuable feedback from everyone in the community, we shared our request for comment process. And so far, we shared more than 7 RFCs for sure on different topics. in different product areas as well, from framework to tooling and components, where we asked you, for example, what do you think should be the future of the end-to-end testing in Angular? Do you think we can drop Internet 11 support? Do you think we can move forward with deprecation of JIT? And in these RFCs, we received over 300 comments for sure as of today, and hundreds of thousands of impressions. Some of these RFCs motivated what we're going to release as part of version 13. And probably one of the things that you're really most excited about, which is a little bit unexpected from me, was the removal of Internet Explorer 11 support. People's reaction was, in fact, like overwhelmingly excited, because you're happy that we'll be able to finally move away from non-evergreen browsers, and Angular will be able to take advantage of modern standards such as CSS variables, intersection observers, and web animation APIs without polyfills. We will be finally able to start shipping ECMAScript 2020 bundles to the browser, and so on and so forth. Another RFC we shared some time back was about the new Ivy library distribution format. So as part of Angular version 13, we will be shipping a new format in which we're distributing Angular. It will be the so-called partially compiled Angular with our partial compiler. We'll be removing QMD bundles, and also we'll be shipping ES 2020 output, which means that there is going to be a sync await with a transform so that the sync await supports Zone.js. Another change that I'm excited about is around build tooling. So now when you're building your application, you're running ng-build. Behind the hook, under the hood, this is calling Webpack. Webpack is invoking our build optimizer, which parses your source code with the TypeScript compiler, traverses the abstract syntax tree, and finds out what constructs are pure and can be tree shaken away by the source code optimizer after that. What we did in the next version of our build pipeline is to introduce ESBuild as a step right after the build optimizer. ESBuild is a fast JavaScript bundler that is implemented in Go, and it also does some optimizations. For example, it does mangling, renames your variables inside of your source code. And it does it in a very non-obstructive way. So you're not going to have variable shadowing, where you're going to have the same variable in different lexical contexts, which means that it is more efficient compared to the previous JavaScript optimizer that we were using in this part of the build process called Cursor. Since ESBuild is not yet, doesn't have feature parity with Cursor, once we optimize your code with ESBuild, we're passing it to Cursor again for some more minor optimizations. So just by introducing ESBuild as part of the build process, we decreased the build speed with 10%. We don't stop here though. We continued reviewing the build optimization pipeline, and we discovered that rather than using our custom build optimizer, we can move it to a Babel transform. This Babel transform can add an extra 10% build reduction, so you can be expecting your build speed for your production builds in Angular version 13 to be over 20% faster. Some couple of additional features as part of version 13 that you could be expecting are Adobe font inlining will be enabling the Webpack 5 disk caching by default, which means that you can be expecting further build time improvement here. Someone reached the metric like 68% faster build, specifically with the disk caching. So yeah, make sure you update to version 13 next month once we release it. Based on the community contribution, now we have dynamic way of adding and removing validators. We also have better accessibility. This is the thing that I talked about at the very beginning. We spent the whole year looking into our Angular material components and improving their accessibility ratings. So that's what is coming as part of version 13. Let me share with you what is coming up next. A couple of the improvements that we're planning on working is extended analysis. So our compiler will be throwing not only compile time checks in terms of type checking, so if your type information doesn't match, or if we're unable to collect the metadata for your components, we'll be extending the analysis so that we can perform extra correctness and conformance checks. For instance, we'll be able to check whether you're using the proper banana in a box syntax, or whether you're not having, or whether you have any performance sensitive regressions within your source code. We'll be working on simplifying APIs, since now we can get rid of view engine. We'll be working on more advanced guides in our documentation, and our efforts on moving some of the primitives in our material design components to MDC Web are continuing. And there is one more thing that is going to have a massive impact on the Angular ecosystem in terms of primarily simplicity, and is going to have some subsequent effects that is going to unblock us to build a lot of exciting features. This is standalone components. We released the RFC about a week and a half ago, and it is still open. It is about enabling a future with optional ng modules, so that you can build your components in a way similar to this. This is an Angular Hello World component. And currently, in order for us to render this component onto the screen, we need to have an associated ng module. We need to invoke a platform browser and bootstrap this module. Even though this is not really extremely complicated, well, developers who are getting started with the framework now, they need to learn two concepts. They need to understand the components model, and they also need to understand the ng modules model, which is redundant. With standalone components, you'll be able to render this component onto the screen just by declaring this component as a standalone and bootstrapping it. And that's all. This new proposal is going to enable a lot of new things. For example, the Bootstrap API that you just saw. It is going to allow us to build a more advanced component level code splitting approach, where you'll be able to load components in a way more ergonomic way. It is going to enable us to make simplifications all across the platform, including the router, the file structure, and so on and so forth. So just make sure you check this proposal. If you have any comments, leave them in the RFC. This is one fantastic way for you to contribute to the Angular ecosystem and to make a difference. That's all I had. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any feedback about my session, please make sure you leave it on mgv.io/talk. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. Yeah, Kamal asked if we keep releasing 2 versions per year, Angular will reach version 100 by 2095. Are we okay with 3-digit versioning? Sure, yeah. I think we're going to reach version 100 before that. But yeah, 3-digit versioning, I think it's going to be also way more digit versioning, because we also have minors and patch versions. So yeah, we're definitely okay with that. Yes, Lars. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions.
Hey, so we are back. Thank you very much for an amazing talk. Very insightful one, and yeah, you've been through the comments. People are excited about all the updates, about the accessibility feature. So this is all great.
Great to hear that. Yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them, or alternatively, you can reach out on social media. Yesterday, I ran my very first AMA on social media about Angular. And yeah, it looks like there are some really excellent questions there. We had a couple of dozens of questions from people.
Awesome. Which exactly media did you use? Was it on Twitter or somewhere else?
Yeah, on Twitter.
It's like Twitter Spaces, right? This.
I just did a regular Twitter thread.
Just regular
Spaces,
Twitter thread.
Yeah, I haven't tried Spaces yet. How do you like it?
I think I tried it once as a guest. Well, that worked. It's very unusual to have this voice conversation. I'm not sure that it will become mainstream, though. It's a bit more, let's say, demanding in terms of attention needed to this.
Yeah.
And of course, just running a Twitter thread is less obtrusive. Maybe this will keep this will be the main format for this Ask Me Anything sessions. We actually had one question on the very beginning of your session. Is Angular elements versus ng module? What's your take on this one?
Yeah, basically you'll be able to develop Angular elements with a simpler API by using standalone components. They're not necessarily competing.
Cool. And the question from my side. So in version 13, you finally get rid of Internet Explorer 11, right? Is it completely removal or deprecation?
We deprecated the previous release, and now we will be removing Internet 11.
Okay.
Support, yeah.
Yes, version 13 is unlucky version for Internet Explorer 11.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was really happy to see how the community reaction on this. And we're really excited to be able to finally use CSS variables. That's
Yes, and I can see that Lars has one more question about if all of these improvements are available in RC0 of version 13, and are they available now?
Yeah, they should be available in version RC0, and we're releasing RC1 today. So please actually give it a try. Let us know if you find any issues or any challenges. We would love to release them, to address them before the release, which is happening in about 2 weeks.
Oh, that's good.
Great. Yeah, so folks, please help with testing, debugging new version of Angular. Please upgrade your projects to version 13 RC1 tonight, right, in European time. And keep ngCo posted about how that goes, if everything works correctly or there are some issues. After all, it's RC yet, it's not like stable, so you can expect some fluctuations. But this is life, and your feedback is what can fix these potential bugs in stable version. So help yourself and help community by testing. And this is my plan for tonight. Right after I see RC1 released, I will do it. I will do upgrade of my projects myself.
This sounds great. And also keep in mind that Google has been using version 13 for a while now. So Google Cloud, if you open it right now, it has been running version 13. But pay extra attention on Angular CLI, for instance, and whether your migrations are smooth as you expect them to be.
Cool.
Sounds great. So
if no more questions, thank you very much, ngCo.
We have Raffle.
Raffle, yeah. So time to do some calls. Raffle. Let's make it. How do you want to make it, Sherry?
It's very, very simple. And by the way, if you since we still have ngCo, so while I do Raffle, if there is any question, you can still have time to type it there.
I'll have to go, unfortunately.
Oh,
but
okay.
I'm available on Twitter anytime. So If you have questions, feel free to reach out there.
Yeah.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day, ngCo. Thanks.
Bye-bye. So the raffle is pretty simple. I'm going to share my screen. So far we have 18 people that they filled out a form. So again, I guess, can someone please add my screen to the stream? Thank you. So we have 18 people that they actually filled out the form. So again, I want to remind you that this event is in person, is in Copenhagen. So if you cannot join, and we have your name chosen, please let us know so we give chance to a person that can actually join. The way that we are going to run the raffle, I'm going to ask my watch to give a random number between 1 and 18, and then I'm going to kind of count from top to bottom. So let's try it. Drum rolls. So, hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 18.
It's 2.
So number 2, which is Nikolai Baring. So congratulations to you, Nikolai. We are going to send an email to you with the instruction on how you can actually claim your ticket and join the event. And for the rest of you, if you would like to join the event, there is a discount code, which is ngCopenhagen 10. You can use that discount code and get your ticket with a 10% discount. We're going to send an email to you all about it as well. I guess we already actually did once. So as a reminder, and Alexander and I will also be there. So if you are there, please stop by and actually say hi. We would love to see you. And yeah, that is the raffle. So if we have the team back on the screen, we can do the closing.
Hey,
Perfect.
time to wrap up. Thank you very much, folks, for attending this event. I checked stats. We were around 40 people online all the duration of the event. That's amazing. So yeah, thanks for joining. I hope you learned a lot about contribution to open source, about what's coming to Angular. Now you are prepared for version 13.
Yeah, and so Maxime, are you going to have any in-person event with the Angular Oslo soon? Anytime? Do you have anything?
No plans yet. I see that my co-organizers are in chat, so maybe this could be nice inspiration for us to do something in person. Now it's possible to do stuff like this in Norway. So yes, why not? I believe before Christmas we'll definitely run in-person event. What about you? What about our dear neighbors from Copenhagen?
With Alexander, we actually also thought about it that we want to do something before Christmas. Maybe we can do a julehugge with all the our beloved member, because it's been quite a long time. Yeah. And Alexander, you are going to speak soon at one of the Danish meetup.
Yes, in Aarhus.
Yes, with our
Aarhus,
friends.
yes, yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
With Philip and Morten. So when is Aarhus JS?
Oh,
Okay. It's in November, I remember.
yeah, it is. It's in the start of November. Yeah.
Yes. So to those of you, if you are around Aarhus,
It's the
so
9th of November. Yeah.
9th of November, join the Aarhus JS, and then mingle there, and
It's a great lineup as well.
yes, you
Yeah,
are part of it. Yes.
yeah, maybe we also
not because of me.
We also can start thinking about next edition of ngWagons.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very exciting as well.
Yes. So let's make it all happen.
Yay!
So thank you all for joining us today, and big thanks to Tracy and Dot Media team for organizing this event and actually be the reason that we all gather here together. And hope to see you all soon in person somewhere. So have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.